Mr. Trevor Sloat, another one of our guidance counselors here, Miss Gabriella Donato, SUNY Oneonta College representative, Julio Torres, Western Connecticut State University representative, and I'm not sure if Mr. Ryan Neary is here from SUNY Farmingdale.
Yeah, I'm not able to rename myself. I'm not sure why, but I'll be video conference Ryan tonight.
Okay, all right, thank you. So I'm going to begin with a couple of few slides regarding just the premise of the evening, and then we're going to hear from our college representatives, the experts in the field, about what's up and coming with admissions, and you know, we'll go from there. I'm just going to share my screen.
Guys, if you have also any questions, please feel free to put your question in the chat. I'll try to get to it as soon as possible.
Okay, so welcome again to College Information Night. This is just, if you're not sure who your child's guidance counselor is, this is a breakdown of all the guidance counselors and their alphabetical assignments based on grades. So this is a very exciting time in both you and your children's lives, because this is the time where we encourage students to start to explore what is out there past North Babylon High School, and how do you go about exploring and researching and finding out what colleges are out there, what colleges are a good fit for you and your family. And we, as the guidance department, work together with you and your student to kind of help you along that process. And then once they're seniors next year, we work with you and your student to actually apply to the schools that you have interest in and have are looking to get accepted to and to eventually attend. So the idea right now is almost like shopping. Like you and your child are going to look at what is important to you as far as the college experience. So some things to consider are admissions requirements, their grade point average that they're looking for. By now in high school, you should have, and your child should have a good idea as to what their ballpark GPA is. If you are an 80 student, a 90 student, you would know that at this point, and you could start to kind of use that information to look at the schools and see what are they looking for in a school, and kind of where do you fit in. Other criteria to consider is tuition and fees, because every school has a different tuition linked to it.
I'm sorry, ma'am, can I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
Is it possible we can have everyone on mute so you can speak so that there won't be any feedback?
Sure. Ms. Lugavini, are you able to mute everyone but me?
I am currently muting people one at a time. If I mute all, you get muted.
Okay. Okay.
But participants can mute themselves. So anybody who's on, who's not speaking, if you would mute yourselves, that would be very helpful.
Okay. So the next criteria that I personally feel is one of the more important ones is the location of the school, the size of the school. These are where these are criteria to consider when you think about where are you the most successful, where is your child the most successful? Is it going to be away on their own, hours away from home? Is it going to be in a school where it's very large, so their classes are going to have like hundreds of other students? Or do you feel that your child is more successful in a smaller type of environment where it's almost similar to North Babylon High School, where there might be 30 students in a class? These are the types of questions that students should be asking themselves now, and you should be also thinking about where you feel your child would be the most successful. I had met with a student today who was adamant about going to University of Rhode Island. This is her dream school, and she went and visited it, and it was just really, really big. And she felt that these classes she would get lost in. So now she's reconsidering some of her applications, and she's looking to go to a smaller school where there'd be like 30 to 40 students in a class, because she feels that that's where she would be the most successful. And these are the types of questions that you need to start to ask yourself and start to figure out. And it's not about where you know your other children have gone to school, or family members have gone to school, or friends have gone. It's really a self inventory. These are personal choices, and it's a really like unique time where you can sit and really figure out the best plan for you. Athletics. Are you looking to play? Is your child looking to play a sport in college? If so, are they looking for a Division I or Division II school? Or maybe they're not interested in playing a sport, but they want that type of school where sports are big on the weekends. Maybe they want like a Penn State or a Syracuse, where a lot of the college life is centered around going to games on the weekends and enjoying that part of the school. Programs and majors. If your child is undecided as far as what path they are going to go down, you want to look at a school that has a variety of offerings, so that you have the choice. If you decide to switch a major, or you know, you could still maintain your attendance at that school, just maybe switch what you were considering. Or if your child knows that they want to be a teacher, you're going to look at schools and their teaching programs and see which is the most beneficial to you. Would they do student teaching there? Would they have to come home? These are questions that you're going to start hearing yourself answering and thinking about, because these are all the factors that will go into ultimately deciding on a list of schools that are going to work for not only your child, but your whole family. Extracurricular activities and a social life. Maybe you have a child that's very into community service and they want the option to join clubs and get involved in college in certain types of clubs, and you want to make sure that the schools that you're looking at offer these type of clubs. Maybe your child wants more of a life outside of the school per se, like maybe they want to get it, maybe the school's affiliated with a hospital and they eventually want to go into the medical field, and there's a link between those two things. So there's really a lot to consider, but now is the time where you get to start to kind of figure that out. And we're not in any rush. It's more of a process that, although I think can be stressful sometimes for families, it's also an exciting time to kind of really figure out this next phase of life. So where to begin? Where do you find out about these schools? How do you find out about these schools? How do you find out what's out there? There's a lot of different ways to kind of see what's out of not only North Babylon, but out of New York State and stuff like that. So we have college fairs that are here in the building. We've just had one in the fall and we'll be having one in the spring, where about 80 schools come to our school with a representative, and they set up a table, and students go from table to table and they get to see what type of schools these are, what they offer, and they get to speak one-on-one with representatives. We also in the guidance office have college representatives that sign up to come here. And I believe we're still doing it virtually, but in NAVIANCE, which I will get to what NAVIANCE is in a second, there's a list of schools that come visit, and your student would sign up to meet with that representative. And it was all done through the guidance office. There's also some search engines such as College Board, where you could put in a search. And then you could also, if you ever hear of schools that you might want to find out more about, you could just Google those individual schools. Going on visits is also a major part of kind of deciding if the school is something that works for you, because you get to actually step on campus and see how you feel on that campus. Did you get a good vibe? Is it somewhere where you see yourself? And then NAVIANCE, which I will get to, I believe it's the next slide. NAVIANCE is our school's post-secondary planning tool. So it's a program that all of your children have on there. They get to it via their ClassLink account, and you can do many different things using this program. But it is one of those things where you get as much out of it as you put into it. So the guidance department does push into classrooms and introduce various aspects of NAVIANCE. But the main, like the nuts and bolts of NAVIANCE that I want to touch upon today, because this is going to be a big part of your child's part of the journey of figuring all of this out, is going to be through NAVIANCE. So there's college searches, so you can put in a name of a school and hit search, and you will get just a snapshot information of each school, majors, location, how many students go there, what's the application date, you know, all sorts of easy access information. We also in NAVIANCE have personality tests and interest inventory. So if you, and we go into the classroom and work with your students, if 11th graders might have done it already in 10th grade, where they answer a bunch of questions and it comes out with spaced certain careers that match your personality. So if you know you want to, you know, work in a group, or you want to work in a hospital setting, you would answer these certain questions and it would give you a list of careers that kind of coincide with your personality. This is where we would have a list of scholarship opportunities for students. This is where you would see any college representatives that are coming to our office. This is where you would really start to develop your college plan. This is where you could start to enter schools that you're interested in, and you kind of compare them against each other. This is where it kind of all begins. And it's a good opportunity. It's a great opportunity to, if you're not that familiar with it just yet, to you know, just start to become a little bit more familiar with it, because it really will become such a big part of your child's college exploration journey. Just to touch upon the college visit, I think schools are back to, most schools are back to in-person visits. If that's a choice that you would like to do, you would either schedule a tour online, or maybe even call their admissions office, and you could do a formal tour, or you can, I believe at this point, and we'll hear from our college reps, but I believe you could, if you didn't want a formal tour, you could just go to that campus and kind of walk around. I've heard of tours that are back in, where you are allowed to visit classes in session. You're allowed to tour the dorms and just basically make an observation of the surroundings. Do you want a school that's in the more of a suburban, almost like rural kind of environment, or are you looking for something more like near a city and more urban? Are you looking to go to like a total change of weather type of school, where maybe Florida or Virginia? You know, these are the types of questions that you should be kind of tossing around, just to get an idea as to, you know, where to actually really consider applying. At this point, I'd like to stop sharing my screen and kind of open it up to our representatives to speak about what are the like some of the aspects of the college application, and what they consider when they're viewing an applicant, and then, you know, what they're looking at, or looking for, I should say. So if Ms. Donato, if you wouldn't mind just speaking a little bit about what colleges are considering.
Sure, absolutely. So I'll speak kind of on behalf of Oneonta, and I would venture to say that what we're looking for is probably similar to what others, and then feel free to jump in and add anything else. But I would say the most important part of your college application is certainly going to be your transcript. So there's a lot of things that go into the decision-making process, but your academic record and history is going to be the most important. But there are a lot of different things that we look at when we look at your transcript. So we're not just looking at your cumulative GPA at the bottom of the transcript. We are looking at that, but we're also looking at the types of classes that you chose to take, the rigor of the curriculum that you are enrolled in. I would say at this point, just about every high school with your transcript will attach a school profile. Most of us who have been doing this for a while have pretty good insight into what high schools are offering in terms of course selections, and that helps us get an idea of what classes you chose to take in comparison to what types of classes are offered at your school, and whether or not you chose to challenge yourself. With that, I always say, make sure that you're taking classes that fit your academic level. So if you are not a student that can handle 5 AP classes, don't sign up for 5 AP classes, right? Like, we want you to challenge yourself, but only to the limit that you know that you can handle. We don't want you to enroll yourself in an over challenging curriculum that's then going to bring down your academic record. So those are the types of things we're looking towards in terms of curriculum. On the transcript, we're also looking at the way your grades are trending. So we do pay attention to how you did in 9th grade versus 10th grade versus 11th grade, and in some cases senior year as well. So are your grades trending upwards? Have you been steady across the years? Are they trending downwards? What type of improvement have you shown? Things like that. So all of that are things that we look at when we're looking at the transcript. Outside of the transcript, I would say the things that we consider pretty heavily, at least here at Oneonta, are your extracurricular activities and involvement, your essay, and your letters of recommendation. Right now, we're still in that test optional window. So the senior class this year can choose whether they want to submit their test scores or not. SUNY is making that decision for the SUNY system, so I don't have that answer yet for the junior class about next year. We're hoping that they continue with the test optional mode, but we'll probably know more towards the closer to the spring semester. So if you choose to submit them, we'll consider those as well. If not, we'll make the decision based on all of the other information. But really, we want to also learn outside of your transcript who you are as a student, who you are as a person, what are the things that you care about, are passionate about, are interested in. We have a really active student life on our campus, which we can talk more about, but we want to bring students to our campus who are going to be involved and participate and continue to grow the community that we've built on our campus. So we care about and look at and read all of your activities, all the types of involvement that you've participated in. And we can certainly talk more about that because there's so many different things that fall under that umbrella that I think students don't always realize, like, oh, that counts. That's something you should include in your application. But those are kind of like the parts, the main parts that we're looking at in the application process.
Thank you. Mr. Torres, anything you would like to, anything you'd like to say about what Western Connecticut's looking for?
Certainly. I mean, that's very hard to follow there because really, Mr. Nato said almost everything I was going to say. I mean, one thing you'll hear me say routinely when I do panels is it really depends upon the institution that you're applying to. All of us generally do the same thing, but all of us look at things slightly different. And then there is a difference between a public school and a private school in terms of what they may be looking for, but you have to ask that specific school. At Western Connecticut State University, we are test optional. So you can apply test optional to us or not. And it's the same process. And our merit scholarships are, and I'm sure we'll touch on that as well. You can definitely obtain a merit scholarship with applying for SATs or not applying for SATs. And one thing about testing I just like to inform students about is there's close to, I think it's now 1,600 schools that are test optional out there. So really the SAT and ACT tests have, gone from, say, a #1 indicator to just a indicator for a lot of schools. So for all the juniors out there, it's important to do that, your test prep, but it's not a make or break for a lot of institutions, especially the ones I've worked for, and especially at Western Connecticut State University. But similar to what SUNY Oneonta has said, and similar to many other schools, we're going to look at your transcript. We're going to look at your average. We're going to look at the classes you took, the competitiveness of the class. We're going to look at what are you doing in and around your time, because every college wants engaged students on their campus, and there is a fit for everyone. I think last count, there's something like 5,200 or 5,300 institutions of higher learning in the United States. So there is a fit for everyone. It's just you have to get on the campuses and do your research to figure that fit out. If you've had a challenge, whatever that challenge is academically, let us know about it. If you have something going on in your personal life that's precluded you from doing well, let us know. And also for the juniors and the parents, a lot of the mid-sized to small-sized schools rely on your guidance departments. So if we have questions, we're contacting your guidance counselors to answer some of those questions or give us further insight. So rely on this, your wonderful North Babylon office that you have here, and no, they didn't pay me to say that. But in all seriousness, it is a wonderful office that you have. Schools are also going to look at letters of recommendation. At Western Connecticut State University, they are not required if you apply with your SATs. They are if you don't apply with your SATs. So again, there's going to be those little nuances for every application that you're going through. And I always tell students and families, the minute you try to strategize this process, you're actually going to go crazy. It's literally ask us and ask your guidance counselors, because what worked for this year's senior class may not work for next year's junior class. What works for next year's junior class may not work for the following year's class. It really does vary year to year. So you really do have to, be engaged in the process right now, work with your counselors, but also work with your admissions representatives when we come to your school. Our institutions are investing our resources to come to your school or be on these virtuals. And it's a really good opportunity for you to hear from the people that read your applications at those different schools and ask us direct questions. I don't want to take up too much more of the time, so I'll cease my comments there.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Neary, anything you would like to add about just the whole college admissions, what you're looking for?
Sure. I mean, how do I follow both of that? Great points, great strategies in terms of what colleges are looking for in terms of a whole overview. To touch on things that haven't already been said, I would relay, when you're applying, when you're in your senior, you're applying to these different colleges in these very specific programs, make sure that you're aware of the prerequisites to these programs as well. And you start strategizing this with your school counselors in your 10th and 11th grade year. So if your son or daughter wants to become a doctor in their senior year, you may want them in an advanced level biology instead of a physics class or something along those lines, because this will help better prep those students to get ready for that college level science when they're going into it. Or take engineering for an example, you want to make sure that you're math ready or pre-calc ready for engineering. So make sure, and what does this all revolve around? It revolves around communication. Julio and Gabriela brought up great points about, seeing the college and what we're looking at. And yes, we're going to digest your transcripts. We're going to look at your letters of recommendation, but every admissions counselor that I've come across is awesome. We're open, we love to communicate, and we're nice. And, we want you to communicate with us. So if you feel like you're maybe on the fence or maybe you don't have the GPA, that's okay. Talk to us about it. Express that in a college essay. Have a virtual one-on-one or an in-person one-on-one with us, to express what's going on and what we can do. Our jobs in admissions is never to deny a student. It's to look for every possible way to get you to that end game. May not be about where you start, but it's always about where you finish. And that's our goal. It's to get you into the college. And we utilize, the school counseling offices. They're our bridge. So when you communicate to them, they're communicating to us. So just keep that open line of communication, lean on your school counseling office and lean on those admissions offices that you are thinking about applying to, because we want you. So, and I'll leave it at that.
Gonna jump in real quick. Karen Schmidt posted in the chat, and I figured it would be a great question for one of our college admissions officers to ask. She asked, how do the colleges take into consideration the inequities in education that took place last year with the implementation of online and distant learning? I don't know if anybody wants to jump in.
I'll start it off. I think, as Gabriela mentioned earlier, in every school profile that I've read this year, there has been a statement or a paragraph or an addendum, on what happened during the pandemic and how that specific school dealt with it. And I know for us, what we're doing is taking it literally case by case basis and literally giving students, that benefit of, listen, the benefit of a global pandemic is we all went through it. So it's not an isolated event. And some people are, better at remote learning than others, and some thrived, some didn't do as well. So again, that's where, again, as my colleagues have said, we're going to look at the whole picture And if we have questions, we're going to contact people. But again, the benefit, if there is a benefit of a global pandemic, is literally everyone went through it. So it's not something that, is isolated to you. Now, your experience in it might be very unique, but everyone went through it. And I think most colleges and most of the colleagues I've talked to, we're all dealing with it literally case by case, school by school, and how it worked for that specific circumstance.
Thank you.
I'll also just quickly add to that because I've seen a lot of this over the last 2 years. There's also places on, like if you're doing the Common App, where you can add additional information. And I've seen a lot of students use that additional information section too. And there is a question that also asks about how COVID has impacted you. Use those spaces to kind of talk about some of those things with us and share those experiences about how virtual learning may have impacted you or what effect, if any, the pandemic has had on you and things like that. So the Common App has also made adjustments so that you can share that information with us. And I know at least I've seen a lot of that.
Thank you. Yes, I think it's I know my colleagues and I say to our students year after year that the idea here is to put those wonderful qualities that you have as a student and make them shine and make that message get across to the college representatives who are all human, who are all reading these applications and looking for ways to admit you to their school. And I think with the after effects and maybe even the still effects of COVID, it's a very different process, but as long as you are open and honest about really how things have gone on for you, I think everyone is understanding and compassionate to that. And we're looking to get you to that next level where we can start to hopefully move on in your like educational life. I'd like to just ask about like services on campus for students that have IEPs or 504 plans. What types of services do you have for those students that would, that are made available to them? Anyone wants to just jump in?
Yeah, I'll jump in if that's okay. And I'll speak for Farmingdale State College. We have a disability services center on campus, housed on campus. It is independent. So, if you do have an IEP or a 504, you have to supply that department with it independently. And then we will cater to those services 100%. To bank off of that, all college paying tuition, you're paying fees. So there are going to be a lot of support services on college campuses for your students. Anything from tutoring, peer mentor tutoring, support services. If there's specialty types of programs like first generation, like TRIO or educational opportunity program. But going back to the initial question with, if you have an individual education plan or a 504, Farmingdale State College will cater to that 100% as long as you supply us with the proper documentation.
Yeah, and I'll chime in next on that is at Western Connecticut State University. It's our Office of Accessibility, and similar to Farmingdale, you can go right on our website right now and look at what the documentation may be needed and what services we do provide. And those will be provided for you. I do believe, and don't quote me on this, almost every school has some type of services and office, but you have to ask that school, what is that ability and what can they do? And that ranges from extra time to specific tutoring for those services. In addition to having, tutoring, peer tutoring, math labs, writing labs, academic learning centers, career services, all of those extra support services for students in general and for students with 504s.
Okay, thank you. Are there any specific information you'd like to share about your programs of study, any specific majors or affiliations that are either becoming more and more popular, or you're seeing, like, you know, just wonderful success with on your campuses?
I'll kick it off, sure. So traditionally at Oneonta, our big majors, the ones we're most known for, have been our education program, which continues to be large and continues to be nationally recognized. Our business program, bio and psych are very big, which I think they're very big everywhere at this point. And then some other kind of specific ones that we're seeing students at Oneonta specifically for is our music industry program, which is like a unique combination of audio production and music business coursework. Our fashion and textiles program that we partner with FIT for is very big on our campus. We have a recently added BFA program in art and design. And I would say two of our fastest growing programs on campus are exercise science and sport management. And we have a bunch of cooperative programs, partnerships that we have with other schools. They're all listed on our website. So those are just kind of some of the big majors and some of the fast growing programs.
All right, I'll jump in. Farmingdale is also a SUNY school, and we are a school of technology, so applied sciences. We love to work with our hands. So, you know, School of Engineering, Tech, and Health Sciences are predominantly our two biggest schools. We also have a very strong business management program. But to kind of spotlight a couple of our programs, I would say, in terms of being eclectic, we have a dental hygiene program. So if you're looking to become a dental hygienist at the associate's degree level, which is all that's really needed for licensure, you can do that with Farmingdale State and also attend afterwards to get your bachelor's degree 100% online. So a dental hygiene completion program. The other program is definitely our nursing program to kind of spotlight, although it's competitive, and you'll hear that from any college with a nursing program. The spotlight that I'd like to share with you guys is the passing rate of the NCLEX. So the NCLEX is the nursing board. So after they attain their bachelor's degree in science and nursing, to become an RN, you have to take your boards, which is called the NCLEX. Farmingdale State College has had a 100% pass rate on this exam for the past 5 years, meaning that our graduates are passing this on the first attempt and walking into a job. It's about a 99% employment rate once you become an RN. And after everything that's gone on over the past 20 months, there is a high demand for nurses. So, you know, besides the nursing, that probably our pre-med program, because we have specific pre-medical advisement. So we have a malleable biology degree, which is pre-medical, where you can kind of fine tune it to meet the prerequisites in order to go into a specific medical school.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to revert back to the presentation, or did you want to say something, Mr. Torres? So you unmute.
I just wanted to jump in and finish that, but if you wanted to go ahead, by all means, I can finish later.
It's okay, go ahead.
So a few things at Western Connecticut State University, and I'm so glad my colleague at Farmingdale brought up the nursing program, because we also have a nursing program, and he is spot on what he says about competitiveness. We're actually ranked the #2 nursing program in the state of Connecticut, and we have very similar numbers when it comes to the NCLEX. So that's amazing. The one caveat is our nursing program is not test optional. We also have our AACSB accredited School of Business, which stands for the Association to Advance Collegiate Schools of Business, of which only about 900 schools in the world have that accreditation. So that's a very good accreditation to have. We have our health science program. We have now a 3-2 program where students can get their bachelor's degree from us and their master's degree in athletic training from one of our sister schools in Connecticut, as well as we have our visual and performing arts program that we offer. And one thing that sets us apart from a lot of different public schools in the state of Connecticut is our in-state tuition for New York State residents. So New York State residents pay the exact same price as our Connecticut State residents. So that's something that we found really sets us apart slightly.
Thank you. Good to know. So I'd like to revert back to the couple more slides in the presentation, and then we'll open the chat up for questions and answers. So just give me 1 second, and I'll share my screen. So as students and families are getting to know more about colleges and what they offer and where they're located, and if you start to feel that you are getting an idea of schools that you could see yourself going to, you're going to develop what's we call just a college list. And in that list, you're going to kind of categorize this list of schools into certain groups. Reach schools, target schools, and likely schools are what we like to, the terms that we like to use when you're at this step of the process. So reach schools, so if you have an idea now what your GPA is or your child's GPA is, and you're looking at schools that have GPA requirements that are a little bit higher than what your student has, that would be considered a reach school. Not saying you shouldn't apply to those schools, just understand that you're slightly below what they're looking for, but we still encourage students to apply, because you don't know what they are looking for. You might have play the tuba and they're looking for a tuba player in their band. So they're willing to, kind of look at your application a little bit differently. Target schools is where your GPA is right within the range of what these schools are looking for. And then likely schools, or what we used to call safe schools, these are schools where your GPA is higher than what they're looking for, and it's almost, you know where you're going to get into those schools. And let's say worst case scenario, you do not get into any other schools you apply to, these schools would be, a backup for you, and you would have absolutely some acceptances under your belt. Different schools have different admissions programs. I just kind of want to touch on this a little bit. These are some terms that right now might not seem relevant because we're very new into the process of exploring schools. But as you start to look at schools, you're going to see these terms. And I just wanted to make you, just as a heads up, this is what they mean, and this is what it could mean for you. So early decision is a type of admission program where a student applies to that school. It is their first choice school. They are legally bound to attend this school if they apply early decision. So early decision is a tricky one. I think in my career here, I've been here 16 years. I think I've had one student apply early decision because it's legally binding. So if you apply to other schools and get in and get like a full scholarship offer to you, you can't go there if you've applied to a different school early decision with no financial aid. Let's say. So it's be very mindful of the early decision terminology. Early action is similar to early decision in that you do apply early and you find out a decision early, but you're not legally bound to go to that school. Regular admissions are admissions that there is a specific deadline. So if you see March 1st as a deadline of that school, that's a regular admission deadline, and you would have to adhere to that deadline. Rolling admissions it's basically first come, first serve. So they will take applications until they have met their quota for the freshman class, and then they no longer accept applications. So there's no specific deadline. It's just first come, first serve. So we still encourage all of our students to apply on the earlier end of their senior year so that they don't get closed out of any programs. On-site admissions is something unique to North Babylon, where we have a group of colleges, usually around 15 to 18 schools. They will send a representative here, and they will meet with a student one-on-one and review their application packet right there in front of them and give them a decision right there in front of them. So it's an easy way to get an answer quickly. It's all coordinated through our guidance office. We have started them already, and we're getting students getting accepted. They are offered scholarship packages right then and there. So it's just sort of a seamless way to apply to these schools if these are the schools that your child is interested in. So at this point, I wanted to just break down the year for juniors, because there's certain responsibilities that you will be seeing more of and being required to kind of complete based on the time of year. So now that we're approaching winter, we're encouraging you to learn about and research schools. This is the time where you can take advantage of visiting schools. You could do a lot of online research. If your schools that you're interested, if you know you're going to stay local, you have no interest in traveling off of Long Island, let's say, you could drive around to those schools and see, you know, what is going on there and if it's someplace that you could see yourself going. And if so, what are their requirements? And what can they, you know, what is it about them that is really making you really want to apply there and eventually attend there? Registering for the spring ACT or SAT. Most schools, like it has been mentioned, they are test optional, but we never know how that can change. So, you know, we encourage you all to register for those exams in the spring. In the next couple of weeks, you will get back your PSAT results. And from there, you can see, based on your score report, where you were had areas of strength and where you had areas of weakness. And based on that, you can start to work on strategies to improve your scores, which we will be coming into your classrooms to kind of go over with you more specifically on how to do that, how to use that score report to improve your scores for the spring exams.
Ms. Kremisos, may I jump in?
Sure.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a couple points on the SAT, ACT. PSAT results have actually been posted to NAVIANCE. So you could see those results there. And eventually, if College Board, I don't remember when they said they were going to be sending out to students, they no longer send out actual paper. Everything is done electronically. But the point I wanted to make about SAT and ACT is that North Babylon serves as a testing center for the March SAT, as well as the June SAT and the April ACT. So I always really try to push those times in the spring for our juniors so that they can get onto College Board, register for those exams, and make sure that they get a spot with us. So they're taking the exams in our school in a familiar place. I'm always here on those Saturdays. So I love when I see more of our students taking those exams versus we're open. It's a national school day, so we can get students from all different types of schools. So just keep those dates in mind and don't miss the deadlines in terms of registering, and you would register on the College Board.
Okay, thank you. Couple of other bullet points: signing up for college information sessions. Those are the ones I mentioned earlier. In NAVIANCE, you would sign up and meet with a college rep, whether it's virtually or in person, about anything related to that school that representative is from. In the spring, we'll have our second college fair, usually in April, I believe, in person. Again, another opportunity to kind of get out there and see, even learn colleges' names, what states these colleges are in, and just to become as familiar as you can with what is out there for you. Taking a self-inventory assessment on NAVIANCE, this is something you could do on your own, and most of you might have completed some already. It's the career interest inventory or the career profiler, where you answer a bunch of questions and it gives you an idea as to careers that coincide with your strengths and preferences. It also will take you a step further into researching those careers. There's an option called Road Trip Nation, where you can view these careers by you're viewing interviews with professionals in those careers, and they can speak to what type of schooling they needed, what type of income they're making. So you get a really good idea as to the careers that coincide with your preferences and strengths. Starting a resume. This is probably one of the most important things that we encourage juniors to do. It's a tab in NAVIANCE where you begin a resume. So any activity that you have been involved in since 9th grade, whether it's a club, a sport, if you've received any honors and awards, if you do any community service, if you have a job, basically any way that you spend your free time is what we want in a resume, because you will need this when you do apply to schools And it's a good idea to kind of start it now and keep it as a work in progress. You can always add to it. It's hard to do something like this, like the night before something is due. So you want to kind of keep it going from starting this year, putting in the stuff that you have done in 9th grade and 10th grade. This way it's just easier to kind of manage. Focus on maintaining competitive grades in your classes. So we have heard the representatives all talk about the level of classes that you're taking, the types of classes you're taking. So we want you to make sure that you know that it's not only a grade, it's what type of classes are you in. So we want you to continue to not only take competitive classes when we do your schedule for next year, but to maintain those grades this year, so that when you do apply to colleges next year, these are the last year of grades that college representatives will see. It's the most recent indicator of you as a student. You've all changed from 9th grade till now. So, you know, we feel like it's the last full year that these college representatives will see. And staying involved in extracurricular activities. So once again, we've heard all the college representatives talking about they want involved and active participants coming onto their campuses in the fall. They want students that are going to continue to be involved in the school and in the community. So stay involved in the extracurricular activities that you are already in. And if you're not in any, now's a good time to start thinking about clubs that you can join or sports that you could participate in. Perhaps a job, perhaps tutoring after school, babysitting, sort of things that you could put on this resume at some point.
Ms. Gramitos, I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt your role. I just wanted to say something quickly about college fairs. We're also partnering with Westbury High School. We have received many requests from students and parents about the types of schools that are represented at our college fairs. And so we are working to develop an HBCU, a historically Black college and university fair on our campus in the spring. So we're hoping to also bring that to our campus, and HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities, are open to all students, and also to hopefully have a college tour of the HBCUs in the fall, which will be open to our current juniors.
Okay, thank you. So spring and summer of junior year, you're going to be hopefully taking some ACT and SAT exams. You will ask your teachers for letters of recommendation. In the spring, we are, actually, I believe in like February, not really the spring, we will be meeting, the guidance counselors will be meeting one-on-one with all of the juniors to go over your courses for next year. And in that meeting, we also go over a lot of this college preparation piece. And one of them is asking teachers for letters of recommendation. So you can start to think about now teachers that you would ask. Basically teachers from some core subject areas, teachers that you have a good relationship with, you've done well in their class. These are the types of teachers that you should start to consider possibly asking for a letter of recommendation in the spring. In our junior meeting, we will, like I said, be choosing your classes for next year with you. And you want to kind of maintain those competitive classes, those upper level classes. But again, still maintaining a balance. Take on what you can take on, so that we don't want to overwhelm and stress you. We just want you to really work towards your like full potential. Visiting colleges in the spring is always a good idea. There's a lot of breaks. The weather is much nicer, and you can kind of make better use of the weekends. Continue to update your resume. You will start to develop a list of schools by then, usually 15 to 20. I would say on an average, my students apply to between 7 and 10 colleges every fall per student. However, that's not, some students apply to 2 colleges, and I've had students apply to 30 colleges. So there's really no magic number, but 15 to 20 to kind of hone in on, I think, is a good start. In the spring, in your English classes, you should be beginning to look at the essay topics and essay prompts for the college essay, and start to think about topics that you would feel comfortable writing about and want the college representatives to know what you want to share with them. and keeping up your grades. Really, the effort and the commitment to your classes is really, stay strong in that throughout the rest of the school year. For any sophomores in the chat, winter and spring, we'll be reviewing PSAT results with you, learning about the college admissions process and staying on track with your courses. There's a lot of those assessments in NAVIANCE that we'll be working with you on as well to kind of explore possible careers and all that good stuff. Continuing to build your resume, becoming familiar with some of the course offerings, because you will also be selecting your courses for next year very soon, and it's nice to have a good idea as to what courses are out there for you and what you'd be interested in taking as a junior. This concludes my part of the presentation. I just want to, if there's questions in the chat, if we could address them from the parents in the audience. Mr. Sloat, you're on it.
Already done.
Okay. All right, you're on.
All right. Well, I do actually have a question for the college. I've been kind of holding this for a while now, so I got my chance to shine. If you guys could just kind of talk a little bit about the differences between general admissions into your university and program-specific admissions. So I'll speak to Ryan Neary from SUNY Farmingdale, because I feel like I've had this conversation often with my nursing students who are pursuing nursing and have a little bit of a different understanding what it takes to get into SUNY Farmingdale and what it takes to get into the actual nursing program of SUNY Farmingdale.
Yeah. Sure. It's a great topic, and I'm sure that my other admissions colleagues can attest that for pretty much every single one of our competitive programs, there is a pre-name of program for it. So let's take nursing, for example. Just like Julio said, it is Farmingdale's most competitive program to get into. And not everybody not everybody gets in. So what do we do with that group of either denials or students that apply that maybe qualify for our pre-nursing major, which we have at Farmingdale? We meet with on-sites and we go over different requirements. Farmingdale is a little different than your traditional college, whereas we have like 42 bachelor's degrees. We have a master's degree with a second one on the way. We also have 5 associate degrees left. So a long time ago, in a time far, far away, we were a junior college over 15 years ago. And we were also an agricultural school. So we had cows and chickens on and now we're one of the biggest SUNY colleges of technology. So we still have these associate programs, one of them being liberal arts, or what we like to call undecided. With these programs, these are what we call stepping stone programs. So these are, where the are minimal, students can get in, they can transition into higher education, get a feel for what it takes to be a college student, and take the prerequisites in order to get into that said program. So, I'm sure my colleagues will attest that they have these programs as well. This goes back to what I was originally talking about, and that's the communication. Whereas you may want to be a nurse, and you can definitely be a nurse, no matter what your grades are in high school. Okay. It's all about making that transition, getting certain prerequisites out of the way, and keeping that open line of communication, not only with your school counselors, but with the admissions departments. Because again, like I said before, we don't want to deny you. We want to bring you in and we want to guide you, just like your school counselors are, in order to get to that end game. And there are loopholes to everything. So you can 100% start in one of those pre-programs. So just to kind of put it into perspective, I'm sorry that I'm so long-winded. For nursing at Farmingdale, you need to have a minimum of a 92 GPA. If you have a 90 GPA or an 89 GPA, you are going to be denied. I get 1,400 applicants to the program for 50 seats. That's scary, okay? But I can also bring you in to liberal arts and sciences with an 82 GPA in 2 units and 2 units of science, where you can take prerequisites for 1 year in our pre-nursing program and get into our nursing program in year 2. with Farmingdale, we have a 4-year direct admit program for freshmen coming directly out of high school. We also have a 3-year transfer program. So essentially it puts you not behind at all. So you take those college level prerequisites your first year and you fold in the start of your second year. So same end game, 4 years, what we like to typically say is the norm, same outcome. Your Bachelor of Science in Nursing. And this goes for many other programs as well. To take engineering or something like that, there is a pre-everything program. So just make sure to keep up that open line of communications. I will be quiet now.
If any one of the other college representatives want to jump in on that, that's cool.
I don't know
too.
how I follow Ryan with that, but at Western Connecticut State University, we have pre-nursing and direct nursing as well. For those two programs, they are not SAT optional. And we're looking for above an 85 and above 1100 for the pre, and above a 90 and above a 12 for the direct. But also keep in mind, one thing I just want to add very quickly is, even if you get into those direct programs, there's still requirements within those programs to stay in those programs. So you have to be aware of that as well. And another thing that I'd like to touch on is, if you have, ideas of going on to graduate school for, to become a lawyer, become a doctor, or to become other things, really take a look at the whole picture of where you're doing your undergrad and potentially graduate school as you go through this process, if that's an idea. And I just wanted to share that piece of information. Another program that we have is our musical theater program. That's very competitive. And our music program, which is our music and theater programs, which are audition based. So if you're out there looking for any of those programs, you should be asking the colleges, do I need portfolios? Do I need to audition? What are the requirements for this specific program at this specific school? Because we all do things differently, but we all tell you what we do.
Thank you, Mr. Torres. Mr. Donato, I don't know if you want to jump in on that too, or.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. So I think the most common areas where we see those differences are things like nursing, engineering, programs like that have separate admissions requirements. So we don't offer either of those two programs on our campus. So for the most part, the admissions requirements at Oneonta are the same across the board, regardless of whether you're undecided, a business student, a bio student, a theater student. I mean, we're in most cases looking for the same things academically. And then in terms of like our music and art programs, there are some portfolio audition requirements that you'll need in order to get into those majors, but on the academic side, it's still the same requirements overall.
Awesome, thank you. Great segue too, and I want to make sure that we have time for everyone else to answer questions. So I won't be selfish, I promise, but I do have one more question. Mr. Torres kind of popped it into my mind. Can we talk a little bit about the advantage, if there is an advantage, to take an SAT or an ACT based on admissions into any one of your respective colleges?
I'll give it a go. It's a very important word, starts with an S, and it's called scholarships. Whereas most SUNYs, actually all SUNYs, as Gabriella touched on, are test optional. The 4-year institutions, the community colleges are all and have always been test optional and open enrollment. With the 4-year institutions, we are on a year-by-year kind of area. So once we're communicated to from SUNY Central, we will know for the following year. But every college is going to be different in terms of merit-based scholarships. Some may require SATs or ACTs, some may not. So I would say, although many, if not all colleges on this panel are, actually we all are, as SAT optional, it is to your advantage to take it, because if we are SAT optional or blind, you don't have to show it to us if you don't want to. For Farmingdale, if you submit those scores to us, whether you got a 900 two-part or a 1400 two-part, it will have no bearing on our decisions whatsoever. Okay, so whether you have a 80 GPA or 100 GPA, the SATs don't matter. it's what your transcripts, your letters of rec, and what we spoke about before matter. But there are some scholarships that do require the standardized testing. So it would just be beneficial to take them from a Farmingdale State College standpoint.
So I think that's a really important point and question that you should be asking each of the colleges on your list, because you're going to get a different answer everywhere. So we at Oneonta will generally advise students that if you have the opportunity and you can sit for one, to take one, no matter what. Like, always take at least one if you can get in and sit for it. And that way you at least know where you fall and you can make the decision. But oppositely, while we are in the test optional period, so as long as SUNY says we are test optional, we are not using SAT and ACT scores to award any of our merit scholarships. So even if you have a 1400 and you submit it for admissions review, that 1400 is not being considered in the scholarship awarding process. So in the test optional period, we're only awarding merit scholarships based on transcript information. And I know, because I've now heard from different colleagues at different SUNYs, that it's different at every SUNY campus, and I imagine it's going to be different across the board. So that's a really important question to ask every school you're applying to.
And I'll just echo with, and I said at the beginning, it's going to depend on where you apply, and you're going to have to ask each school how they do it. At Western Connecticut State University, we are test optional, and our merit-based scholarships, if you submit your test scores, we will look at them for your test scores. If you don't, we will look at greater in-depth into your transcript. So again, from a scholarship standpoint, those are that period. Now, when you go into other things, I will tell you, if you take the SAT, see your score, tell a school that you don't want them to be seen, but then you get a perfect score and you want them to be seen, communicate with that school to see what their policy is about what deadline they're using to see your SATs or ACT scores, and vice versa. So if you email us and say, you know what, I wanted to submit scores, but now I want to change your mind, you can do that. So again, you have to ask each school how they're dealing with their SAT, ACT testing policy.
Thank you. All right, I'll open it up to whoever else wants to ask a question. If possible, hit the little reaction sign to raise your hand. That way we're not kind of talking over each other.
I also just want to make one other really fast point from what Ryan has mentioned several times about the importance of communication. Another really good question to ask the schools on your list is if they track and or how they use demonstrated interest, which can include all of the different ways that you interact with the college. So attending virtual sessions, visiting campus, talking to us at a college fair, really any calling, emailing, any point of communication. Some schools track all of those things. Some schools don't. Some schools track it and don't use it. Some schools track it and do use it in the application process, and it can benefit you. So that's also a good thing to be asking the schools that are on your list.
I would triple echo that fact.
That is such a great point.
That is such a great point.
Walter Strong, you're up, my friend.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having this. This actually was a conversation that me and my wife was having with my daughter just literally 24 hours ago. So the timing of this is just so great. And so I want to thank each and every individual from the panel for making yourself available. I want to thank the counselors from North Babylon High School making this available. Two questions which I had put in the chat. One, when you speak about letters of recommendation, are these letters of recommendations coming primarily from her teacher, or are they coming from teachers and say people that she's been involved with in her life, say a pastor, part of a dance companies that she's done in different things and activities? So that's question number one. And then question number two, will this video recording on Zoom be made available to us to go back and review? Because you gave so much information. I typed out as much as I could, but will this be made available to be emailed to us? Thank you for taking my questions.
Yes, I did answer you back on there. The recording will be available, will be posted on the district website. I did also answer the letter of recommendation question. It's in the chat. I'll let also one of our admissions representatives kind of discuss that as well on what they normally receive from letters of recommendation. And normally it's teachers, but it could really be, a pastor would, that's not an uncommon thing for a pastor to write a letter of recommendation. It could be somebody's boss. It could be your student's coach. It could be a student's volunteer leader at some travel camp or something along those lines. So I'll let I don't want to take the mic.
I'll just echo what Trevor was saying there, and I'll continue to echo what I've been saying the whole time. It really depends school to school. So some schools will tell you exactly who they want a letter of recommendation from. Some schools will say, I only want a letter of recommendation from a guidance counselor and a teacher that has been junior year or higher. Some schools will say that. Some schools will say, I don't even want a letter of recommendation. Most schools are somewhere in the middle where they'll say, we want a guidance counselor's recommendation and then a recommendation from your choice. And for some people, it's a teacher, it's a coach, a pastor. I read a recommendation this morning from someone's supervisor from a retail chain. So, I mean, it really depends. I always tell students, get the letters of recommendation, ask for the letters of recommendation, have the letters of recommendation, so that way you can then ask each individual school, either via email or research, what they're looking for, and then supply that to that specific school.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Anyone else? If you can, just raise your hand using the reactions little icon, just so we keep it nice and clean.
And if anybody has specific, if it's okay with my guidance colleagues, if anybody has specific questions for myself or my colleagues, should we put our email in the chat?
100%. Yes, definitely. Definitely.
There you go.
I have a question. I just, because I feel that every year I have more and more students applying early action. And I just would like to know the benefits of that from you guys as far as, obviously I know that we know that you will apply early and find out your answer early, but what are the like specific benefits of applying early action, and would you recommend students doing that most of the time?
So we do at Oneonta highly recommend it. And the benefit for us is that on any given year, it will vary slightly, but our early action acceptance rate is anywhere from 10 to 15 percentage points higher than our acceptance rate for rolling admission. So after early action, we are a rolling admission school, so we'll take applications till our class is full. And our early action students tend to be the ones who want to attend, who will then get a decision early and deposit early, which leaves less spots in the class for the rolling admissions pool. So I would say, other than getting a decision earlier, for us, our acceptance rate is higher in the early action pool.
I'll speak for us. We are rolling admissions, but we have a preferred deadline of March 1st. And I would say the benefit of applying early or early action is knowing what the decision is and being able to move forward or not from that decision or that school. A previous institution I worked at, we had early decision 2, early action 2, and then regular decision. And each pool had its own merit. But one of the things I advise is, if you know that's a school that you want to go to, work with your counseling office and figure out what's the best course for you and the benefit of that. And then, it really, if a student applies early action, gets accepted and is in, and they feel it, but then they get to that campus and they don't like it, they're not bound to it. So they have that opportunity. It gives them an opportunity to kind of see things out as they go through. But again, to Gabriella's point, the earlier you apply, the more options and opportunities you have as you move. But again, depends on the school you're applying to.
If a student does not get in or through early action, do they automatically get put into the regular or rolling admissions group, or is that school specific as well?
I would
That
say
is school specific as well. I'm going to start sounding like a broken record. But there literally are schools that if you apply early action, that's it. And then there's other schools where they roll you into the next pool. And each school has its own rhyme and rationale for why it does, why it has that policy. But that's a question, much to Gabriella's earlier point, that's a question you should ask every single school you look at. That specific question, do they roll into other decision pools?
And each school will also be different in terms of how they award financial aid and aid packages and their timeline. But generally, if you apply earlier and you have a decision earlier, you're usually going to have a financial aid award package or letter earlier and scholarship award notifications earlier, which also gives you more time to make financial decisions about whether these schools are going to be the right financial fit for you or figure out what your financial plan is going to be and have time to compare those packages.
Yeah, that also brings up that the earlier that you apply for financial aid through the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, which will be open to our current juniors October 1st of their senior year. And that's a piece of the college admissions process that is often overlooked or done later after students have applied to college. So we're really trying to work hard. We do a financial aid night early in the school year to encourage parents and students, because you have to apply together. It's not just students really, although we have students who try to do it on their own, really need the custodial parent to be involved in giving, in terms of income and things of that nature. So the free application for federal student aid, the FAFSA, will be open to you by October 1st of your child's senior year. So really keep that in mind as a really important aspect of applying to schools. And oftentimes, even if you feel like you're not going to get any money, you'll be considered for scholarships and merit money because you filled out that application.
Ms. Lugavini, we're like reading each other's minds, because that was the next thing I was gonna kind of propose and ask the question to our reps. Can you kind of explain a little bit of your part of the financial aid process and what students should expect upon being accepted into their into your university and completing their financial aid, their FAFSA application?
I'll go first on this one. So at Western Connecticut State University, if you get a scholarship, that's going to be in your admissions packet. We prefer that you fill out the FAFSA before February 1st. Again, that goes into your, getting everything early. And all of our students are assigned a financial aid counselor for personalized attention. So they get to speak and be connected to that person pretty much after they've done their acceptance and decided, to move a little bit forward with that process. But again, every school is going to be different on how they intertwine with each other and how they talk to each other as you go through. But I couldn't echo, the comments that were earlier any further of, you have to be cognizant of that piece of the puzzle when it comes to your application process and filling out the FAFSA, but also be mindful of the tremendous amount of private scholarships that are available for just about everything, which I'm sure your office puts out and helps students with. So, I tell parents and students all the time, there's a scholarship literally for everything. There's a scholarship if you're left-handed. There's a scholarship if you wear glasses. There's a scholarship for almost any hair color. And I'm not making these things up. I've actually had students who've had each of those during my time. So I tell students, start locally with where your parents work, where your family works, where you do community service, the North Babylon community area, then go outward from there in your scholarship search, in addition to filling out that FAFSA. I think I can speak for my fellow public school colleagues when I say this. Our scholarship dollars might be limited, but your research is not limited. So you might want to, again, see what you can bring to the table, as we are all great values to you as it stands.
I'll touch on that a little bit. I mean, Julio brought up great points, and can't stress enough to fill this out as soon as you're able to, because at Farmingdale, we don't give out scholarships unless you have a FAFSA on file. So it's needed. And it also goes back to the point, whereas you could be sitting there and saying, I make too much money, I'm not going to get financial aid, I'm not going to fill out the FAFSA. Do it anyway, because what that's going to allow you to do is, one, even if you get $500, that pays for a book. But it's going to put you into an area where you can qualify for subsidized and unsubsidized loans, and also look to get what we call Pell and Tap. Pell and Tap is grant money. That's free money. That's good money. That's money you don't have to pay back. So, no matter whatever your income is, fill out the FAFSA as soon as you can, because it's only going to benefit you in the long run after acceptance. We don't give out financial aid packages until you are accepted. So it's rolling admissions at Farmingdale. Unfortunately, we don't have any early action programs. It's a rolling basis, but we work kind of quickly. So the sooner you're able to apply, the sooner you get that acceptance, and the sooner you get your financial aid awards letter. So again, I too will sound like a broken record, just like Julio. It depends on the school. Fill out the FAFSA as soon as possible and communicate. And just like Julio at Western Connecticut, we have personalized attention. So you will be assigned a financial aid counselor as well to help you through this process. And when you have questions, it's not about if you're going to have questions, it's about when you're going to have questions, because FAFSA is not easy. You will reach out to your school counselor, or you can reach out to the financial aid departments of those institutions, because North Babylon does a great job with these information sessions and these financial aid workshops. The colleges will hold these as well. They may even have virtual, information sessions, or even preloaded kind of like on-demand video libraries that you can go into to help you fill that out. So just remember, you're not alone. We're here to help you.
Thank you. If there aren't any additional questions from our parents, I'd like to wrap up this evening's presentation. The slideshow will be available on our website for you to view, and this whole presentation was recorded, and I believe we can email that, Mr. Sloat. I'm not really sure how. Okay, so we could email this presentation to you. You could just email.
I'm not sure about that. It'll definitely be on the website. That I can guarantee. Can't guarantee it'll be emailed.
Okay, I'm not the tech person, so the presentation is available, and this recorded presentation is available on our website at some point tomorrow. But I just wanted to kind of conclude the presentation again, as long as there are no further questions. I wanted to thank our college representatives that took the time out tonight to meet with us and speak with us. I really appreciate it. Your help in this and your partnership in this process really helps our students and benefits our students, and helps us as counselors as well. So thank you. And I wanted to thank all the parents and students that joined tonight. Again, working collaboratively with you in this process is something that we look forward to every year, and we're here to help you through this. And I really appreciate your attendance and participation in tonight's presentation. If there are any questions after we conclude, you could always reach out to us, your child's guidance counselor, or they can come down and make an appointment with us and ask questions as well. And then we'll be meeting with them in the next couple of weeks, it feels like, for their junior conference, and we go over this a little bit in more detail one-on-one with them. So thank you very much. Everyone enjoy the rest of their evening, and we will be in touch.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Have a
Thank
great
you.
night.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you
you.
to our admissions representatives.
Yes, thank you all.
Yes.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you
Thanks
very
for
much.
having us.